stimulus plus reaction equals result. And that was really interesting to me because it's like, we can't always control the stimulus. You can't control a pandemic. You can't control a wildfire burning down, your property and home, but you can control how you respond to it. And how you respond to it that feeds into the result you're going to get. So if you're going to be just a straight victim mindset, then it's just stimulus equals result, right? Because you're not taking any action around that. It's just like, woe is me. But we've never taken that approach in any aspect of our life. So when shit hits the fan is when really the rubber meets the road. And, are these philosophies of life, are these dogmas that, we preach, are they legit or not?
At Active Life, we believe that the healthcare clinic of the future is the gym.
Everybody starts with the best case scenario in mind.
Never sell anything to anybody who is not in the market for what you have.
The only reason we work out is to create the opportunity to recover.
And the healthcare provider of the future is the coach.
And this is why you guys need to get paid well, because what you're doing is really, really hard work.
Welcome, Orion and Aaron from FitAid, LifeAID Beverage Company. I appreciate you guys coming back on the podcast as it pertains to Aaron. Orion, your first time on. Thank you for joining us.
Doc, thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Marissa's in the office right now. She was just raving about your program that she just went through.
Oh, yeah? She enjoyed the seminar then?
She did. She loved it.
Outstanding. I love to hear that. That's always the goal. And, usually you hit it, but not always.
Awesome. Yeah, great job.
Thank you. So what I thought would be really cool to discuss with you guys today is the way that you each and as a company at LifeAID seem to be both big enough to have an impact and nimble enough to innovate and pivot aggressively when necessary, exactly where everyone seems to need it. And that's the case, it seems like, personally for yourselves, and certainly in business. With when last time we were talking, you were running the new program where if you were a member of a CrossFit box, and it closed, you could order your FitAid through FitAid Direct, and you guys would support the gym that they were from, which is awesome. And now it's happening again, and you're doing it in Europe with their second lockdowns. And perhaps that was not at any time more obvious to me than when I saw that, unfortunately, you guys dealt with the wildfires that happened in Northern California this year, and your house was gone, and everything that you guys build in that area is gone. But
not everything. I apologize for misspeaking.
You just seem to be so nimble and ready to take the next step. Where does that come from?
It's a good question. I think it's just part of, our DNA to start a business and to jump from, many years ago, we moved away from being salaried employees and then our own respective business owners. Just being nimble is part of a mindset shift that, it was innate. Me personally speaking, I'm not the type of guy that spreadsheets everything out over the next 5 or 10 years and is so rigid that I can't move away from that. That's more my wife than myself, actually, which is funny because I look at spreadsheets all day, but me personally, I don't live my life like that.
Mm-hmm. And what about you, Aaron?
Well, look, you got to adapt or die, right? If you're not nimble in business and in life, then there's always shit that happens, right? There's always unexpected events. I was reviewing my notebook as I do, periodically about once a month. And I went back to January. So this is pre-fire, pre-pandemic. And I had written something down. I have no idea what the context for it was, but it was just right there on the page. And it said, stimulus plus reaction equals result. Stimulus plus reaction equals result. And that was really interesting to me because it's like, we can't always control the stimulus. You can't control a pandemic. You can't control a wildfire burning down, your property and home, but you can control how you respond to it. And how you respond to it is that feeds into the result you're going to get. So if you're going to be just a straight victim mindset, then it's just stimulus equals result, right? Because you're not taking any action around that. It's just like, woe is me. But we've never taken that approach in any aspect of our life. So when shit hits the fan is when really the rubber meets the road. And, are these philosophies of life, are these dogmas that, we preach, are they legit or not? And if they're legit, then you have to live your life, whether good, perceived good or bad, I say in quotes, because now I'm getting to a point like, is it or even good or bad anymore? It's just shit's happening, and we're reacting to it, and how we choose to react drives the results.
What about being in a partnership makes that different than being able to make decisions for your future on your own?
Well,
not always easy.
It's very much like a marriage. It's very much like a marriage. Well, so any married people out there know exactly what that's like. I mean, you've when you're with somebody for a long period of time, there's major advantages of knowing people in all aspects and all different scenarios and highs and lows, and there's comfort level that develops from that, and
it's less easy to get
trust.
Derailed when you're working in a partnership. Right.
Did you say less easy, Orion?
Yeah, less easy. I mean, it's, you have these competing forces, and, you look at even the current election and landscape, you have these very competing forces, but landing in the middle sometimes is for the best result. And, that's kind of how I view it.
I stayed true to my principles during the election, voted libertarian as I have for the last 20 years. He voted Dem for the first time.
You calling me out my political
I thought you said you were going to be very public about this. What do you have to hide?
For the first time. Interesting.
Well, I mean, I live in California. My voice and vote don't really matter, so I'm more of a protest voter myself. But yeah, I'm not a huge Trump fan. I don't know where that passion comes from, certainly, but certainly as a more traditional, not conservative, because I'm a social libertarian. I'm a fiscal conservative type of guy. Yeah, I just get behind. I'm not a big populist type of guy.
I identify very, very similarly to that. I don't know why we can't just let people be whoever they want to be and not overspend at the same time. That doesn't.
And, both parties are very guilty of that, certainly recently. So.
Yeah, for sure. So when I think about partnerships, I'm always impressed when people are able to focus on an objective and continue to move towards it, especially when things kind of throw them left or throw them right and their vision stays aligned. All of the partnerships that I've been in that have broken down, when they've broken down, have been because of what I would consider my inability to express the vision for the direction of the company that I had. And I've come to learn that, at least for myself, until I learn how to do it better, I need to either be the person who sets the vision and then allows other people to execute it, or I need to allow other people to set the vision and tell me where I need to execute on their behalf. How do you guys make decisions about who is setting the vision, who is executing, and when?
I'd say, our vision is very much a collaborative, ideation. I think, as different as Aaron and I, we both are fire starters, not fire tenders. And so having a great team, being part of that team, and a great team to kind of hand off that vision, I think both of us are successful doing that. But, we've always taken a stance like we're an equal partnership. We have the equal percentage ownership of the company. And you hear in business school, like, that's never the way to start a business. Someone should be majority owner, someone should be minority owner. that's never been our approach. And I think part of that is based on our ownership structure. So we do things by consensus, and like any sort of partnership or any marriage over a long period of time, you know when to press, and you know when your gut tells you you're right, and to really get in front of their face and plead your case, and you know when to back off because there was a compromise in your favor the last time you had a strong disagreement. Which strong is too strong of a word. Where there's not too many strong disagreements. That certainly does arise. Almost 90%.
It used to arise a lot more often. I was going to say, my gut always tells me I'm right.
Shocking you would say that.
That's okay. My gut finds me in the same place. I've never, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to comment that, like, look, so often in this country, we're sedating ourselves, whether it's with social, TV, medication, whatever, because we're trying to avoid pain and not put in the work, right? At the end of the day, to be successful in a relationship, a partnership, a marriage, in business, in life, you either have to endure the pain today or much more pain down the road. And what's that pain? That pain can be an uncomfortable conversation. That pain can be, setting and holding people to a certain level of expectations when you'd rather just be friends and friendly with everybody and have everyone like you. There's always that pain that needs to be endured and pushed through. And so to make the decision, and it takes a while, and, going kind of having some scenarios play out where you're dealing with a lot more pain or even suffering, because then you start telling yourself a story about it in the long run, that you realize, it's a lot easier to nip things in the bud early and deal with the short-term pain, and therefore you can move forward. And a lot of times that pain shows up in the form of obstacles, obstacles in relationships, obstacles in business. And instead of trying to avoid those, we deal with them head on. And when we deal with them, we know that, hey, this might be a nice bump in the road or cause some issues, but coming out of that, we're going to be a lot better place because it's opportunities for growth.
Well, so when you guys get hit by, Orion, earlier you mentioned that not everything was lost in the wildfires. What specifically was lost for you guys, and what was not that you were referring to?
Well, I mean, the amazing property and estate that Aaron spent 16 years of his life, the amount of time his eldest daughter was born working and tending to the land, that was lost. Its current iteration was lost in the fire. And we had many other friends. Upper Bonnie Doon area was completely singed, and a lot of people lost their homes. I think over 1,000 structures were lost. I live up in the mountains in Lower Bonnie Doon. Still, he's at 2,200 feet altitude, and I'm about 1,500. And after a couple days of fire, the fire wasn't nearly a wind-driven fire as it was that he was dealing with and he escaped from. And we were able, a lot of our neighbors banded together, about 50 of us, and we went back up there and we really dug lines, and we saved Lower Bonnie Doon, which I view as the heart of Bonnie Doon, because the church up there was spared, the school was spared, and
most importantly,
Beauregard Winery and tasting room was spared as well. So, if those three things were gone, the tremendous sense of community that we have up there in the mountains, it would be there would be a disbursement of the residents that have lived there for generations. And it would be hard for a lot of us to move back, because there wouldn't be a sense of community any longer. And thankfully, because a lot of resourceful and brave neighbors took the matters into their own hand, because CAL FIRE was absent for the first 4 or 5 days. They were going to let it burn through and protect the UC. The heart of the mountain has been spared.
Is that something that you organized? Is that something that you guys were spearheading? The effort to dig the lines and save the area?
Well, we have resourceful neighbors. So we have our resident billionaire up there that happens to own a big equipment company, kind of as a side hustle up there. He was he was, in charge of a lot of that. My neighbor, a lot of ex-firefighter or current firefighters are up there. And so I was part of the brigade and helping, dig trenching and fire breaks and buckets of water and that sort of thing. And these other guys who really knew what they were doing. I mean, they are the reason why hundreds of homes were spared.
And I would love to hear, if you guys are comfortable going there, what the initial thought is and how you make decisions about what to do next. And I'll give you some context for it. You talked about the victim mindset earlier, Aaron, that it's clear that neither of you have or are even comfortable being around. When something like a wildfire hits your area and your business is going through the worldwide pandemic, it services an industry that is maybe one of the hardest hit by the worldwide pandemic. There's a lot of good reason to just be like, all right, I don't know what to do right now. I have to just kind of sit this one out. That's not valuable, but it would be understood if you did it. So what was the thought process that you go through where you're like, all right, well, the world is literally burning around me. And if it's not burning, it's dealing with a sickness. I'm going to do this first.
Yeah, it was hard. It was really hard. One of the most challenging times of my life. The first several days was just not knowing because, I saw visible flames on each side of me. But in my mind, I said, well, there's a possibility. Like I haven't, it's like doubting Thomas, until you put your hands in the wound, you just don't know. Maybe the house made it. And I think it was day 4 into the fire. I finally made it back up through some back roads. We got turned around by CHP, but just renegaded up literally through fire on both sides of us, active fire. And when we got back towards my place, it was pretty burned through already, and ran into somebody that had been back there on a motorcycle. And I looked at him and he just started shaking his head. And I'm like, dude, how's it look? And he's like, it's all gone. And that was tough because, it was like 17 years of my life into that place. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it's material shit, and all material things have a beginning and an end, this desk we're sitting around, these walls, 1,000 years from now, likely will not be here. They will all just be dust. Like by nature, the very definition of material things is that they have a beginning, a creation point, and an end point. We all return back. So it really got me thinking about just the inaccurate thinking that I had, up to that point in my life, that if there's certain things that have variability and, the stock market and all this craziness in the world. But one thing that's going to always have permanence is my property, because that's where we put our blood, sweat, and tears. And I had, my parents living there and the kids living there and their kids are going to live there. And we're going to build these houses so they can not go into debt buying a house and have a place to live and continue. And we're growing our own food, and we have our own well and septic tanks. And if shit hits the fan in the world, it really doesn't matter, because we're behind, our lock gate a mile down a dirt road. We're off the grid. I got my guns. Yeah, I got my, silver coins. And I'm like, I'm ready. I'm ready for the end of the world. Like, not that I'm thinking that way, but I'm just ready. I'm totally prepared for it. But it was inaccurate. I wasn't prepared for a fire that got to 2,000 degrees and melted metal. That's what the reality I was dealing with. But I think the realization that came out of there is that the only real permanence in life that we have are very things that we think aren't permanent, or things that we may discount that don't have much of an effect, like the inputs we put in our mind and the thoughts that those create, the words that come out of our mouth, even like if we're just talking, in private, definitely are, some actions that may not seem like they mean much, but all of those set, our soul, our energy, our force, whatever you want to call it, on a certain trajectory. And that trajectory is eternal. When the body dies, we know that something continues on. There's some type of an energy that continues on. I think that energy is on a trajectory. So, life for me, the realization was like, wow, I've always been guarded about it. And I need to be even more aware, more conscious of what inputs I'm letting in, what thoughts I allow to ponder on, to fester, what words that come out of my mouth, and be just ultra conscious of that, because that's the only thing that's permanent. All the other stuff is bullshit. All the other stuff, we pretend is permanent, but it's absolutely not. It's absolutely not. It's like you get a brand new car and you're so happy and you're keeping it clean all the time and you're so conscious of it. Well, you fast forward 10 years later, that new car just doesn't have the appeal anymore. You're like, okay, what you thought was always going to be this nice, shiny, pretty thing, it's just not the case.
And I'm sure I know that a lot of friends, and Aaron included, through this traumatic event, have a new appreciation of what things they prioritize in their life, when you lose most of it.
Mm-hmm.
What I prioritized when I was first doing my first getting all the shit out of my house, preparing for it to burn, is the best move that I made during this whole event was I didn't even go in the closet to get clothes. What I did is just went to the hamper and grabbed everyone's hamper and put that in the car into the cops. I figured those clothes matter.
Yeah, the stuff that had recently been worn. I like that. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you going there. I can tell that it makes you a little bit emotional to do it. And Aaron, I appreciate you doing that. How long, or long is probably the wrong way to ask it, but one of the things that one of my friends, I'm not sure if you know Nick Searle or not from Brute Strength, but one of the things he says that I think is really smart is you need to be able to create a gap between emotion and reason. Meaning we have this emotion, and then like you were discussing before, taking the action that follows it with some logic and with some reason. And there are some things like we had a bad day at the office. It's fairly easy when you've had enough bad days at the office and enough good days at the office to be like, oh shit, that was just a bad day. We'll be fine tomorrow. Something like this is something that you haven't experienced before, that you weren't prepared for in both of your cases. Whether you lost your house or not, Orion, I can imagine that entire experience is somewhat life-changing. So was the gap between the emotion you felt in the beginning and the reason that came from the action thereafter longer, the same, or totally different than other moments?
I'll jump in. I'd say it's until you get used to being around fire, like 5 feet in front of you, it's all emotion and less reason. As that week progressed and you started to understand how to deal with the fire, then you can take a step back and have a more reasoned sort of approach and not be in the moment of facing a wall of flames. I would say the reason I went back at 6 a.m. the next day is I knew my neighbors had stayed up there, so my band of brothers were up there, and I wanted to get back, and B, I wasn't going to let it in my house burn without putting up a fight. So that was just innate. I knew I had to be up there, even more so than protecting my home, knowing that I had neighbors and friends up there. I just had a strong impulse to go up there and do whatever I could for my neighbors. Go back to the amazing community up there. It's like, it's worth fighting for. And that, I know that Aaron would have been up there. The same thing had, the whole time if his house didn't torch, and he did go up there and he did help our neighbors for a day or two as well. But, and I'll tell you what, after the fire and we came back down, and it was weeks before we were allowed to get back up there. I had PTSD. I wanted to get back up there, and it was. I imagined that people in the military and going through warfare, imparts a similar set of emotions that I hadn't felt in the past.
I think that the question assumes that the emotional response is going to be the wrong or inaccurate response, right? And the logical response is going to be the right response. And I'll give you an example, and you know, having your background in training, know this as well as anyone. We touch a hot stove as a child. We don't have to think, oh, this is hot, my hand's burning, and move it. Our nervous system, our autonomic nervous system kicks in, and it's reflexive that we remove it. That's the right move, right? So I think the key is shortening that gap, where training yourself that an immediate, an emotional, a reactive response is actually the right response. You know, so for me, was very much like, okay, is the family okay? You know, keep my parents in town, you know, reassure the kids. Like, I didn't necessarily grab the right shit when I was up there. I mean, talk about looking, I mean, I was looking at 150-foot walls of fire coming at me. You never see anything like it. I've been in fire multiple times. We had multiple fires up there over the years since I've lived there. My parents' house had burned down previously, and I was right there for that. So I wasn't a virgin to, you know, those fire situation, but I was definitely had never been in it when the flames were that big and that consuming. And like, okay, you know, what do we do here? And you know, most of the reaction, I did a couple of things that turned out to be, you know, lifesaver. One of our tractors, our skid steer, which does 90% of the work on the property, was sitting right by the treehouse that we just finished, because we just finished digging a septic tank in. And as we're watching the wall of fire, we climb up to the top of the treehouse, and I'm just looking at the whole ridge just burning, and these 100-foot, 150-foot beautiful trees just going up like matchsticks as the flames are coming towards us. And I'm like, oh shit. I mean, this is the real deal. And we hop back in the car to go grab a bag. And right when I hopped in, I jumped back out and told my wife, point the lights over here of the car. And I hopped in the tractor and drove it away from the treehouse and put it right in the middle of our building pad, which is the big blank pad on the top of the mountain, and left. Literally coming back up there, the entire property is destroyed. The tree houses, brand new tree house is gone. The water tanks are gone. The houses are gone. The outdoor kitchen's gone. Places that had hardscape all around it for 50 feet were melted. But the one thing that survived right in the middle was that tractor, which is going to be essential in the rebuild process, like moving, you know, all the debris around and all the trees that I've downed and everything. So it's like, you know, there's certain little blessings that happen. And part of that is just training your body how to react. And I think, you know, some of the stuff we talked about in the past, you know, morning routines, mindset exercises, good nutrition, you know, keeping your body in good shape, like all of these things come into play. Keep your body in good shape and eat well. Why? Well, maybe some psycho while you're walking home tonight, like just happened to our friend up in San Francisco yesterday, attacks you and tries to rob you. Well, I'd rather be in good shape and have a little bit of defense training for that situation than to be some fat fucker and not have any sense of training whatsoever. So the more we can train our body, the more that emotional, that reactive response can be the right response and save our ass when we need it.
Yeah. One of the things that I like most about speaking with you, Aaron, and I'm just getting to know you, Orion, so I can't say this yet, but I imagine that if you guys are such close friends that it would be true also, is that you are what I would consider world-class at challenging my beliefs, other people's beliefs, in a way that allows me to think about them differently. You know, the idea of separating the gap between emotion and reason to me was very concrete. And the way that you just described it was creating rewiring yourself so that the emotional response is the right one. I just want to make sure that I acknowledge that before we move on to anything else. I appreciate it.
I totally made it up just now. So but thank you for challenging that. It's just...
No, but that's what I mean. You know, it's, I value people in my life who are prepared and looking for opportunities to challenge the things that I believe to be true so that I can become a better version of myself. And I feel like that's something that you do extremely well.
I think going through what we just went through as a country in this election cycle, and any business owners out there, I mean, you know, gym owners that were said, you can open, you have to close, you can open, but you have to close again, and going through this whole yo-yo, we need to challenge everything, you know, challenge everything, all of our sacred cows, all of our belief systems. I mean, just like constantly challenge everything. Why do we think the way that we think? You know, am I totally full of shit? You know, sometimes, but you know, sometimes not. Like, constantly challenging, and that's why we make good business partners, because we both love to debate and we love to be right. And when you have that kind of passion and energy, it makes for really good discussions. Now, the key that brings it together is we both want what's best, you know, for the company. So when you're coming from that perspective, then that challenge can offer a really good debate. I'll never forget, you know, when we brought our first private equity partner on board. After like 6 months, he said, you know, I got to tell you guys a story. You know, right after we made the investment, I got a little concerned because we had our first board meeting and you two were arguing about something. And he's been in so many businesses over the years. Usually when he sees that, he's like, uh-oh, major red flag, like the partnership's going to break up or something. He didn't realize, like, that's just how we are. Like, we're constantly, you know, debating, you know, all kinds of different things and coming up with the best solutions. So, you know, developing a little bit thicker skin and challenging everything and being okay with being challenged, and like, you know, recentering your noose when you're wrong. You know, it happens all the time. And sometimes you need plant medicines to help that out. Sometimes you need a good business partner. Sometimes you need a great spouse that keeps you in check, and just, you know, the right type of people around you that aren't just yes people, but people that you have alignment with, but also can have a healthy debate and not be afraid to be, you know, labeled as one radical or the other that we've seen happen through this election cycle. It's just been the most disheartening thing that we're discouraging healthy dialogue and discord in this country.
Well, that's because people have way too thin skin these days, where a thought that somehow challenges you can be so dangerous that you need to create a safe space from that thought is certainly a movement that we need to get away from as fast as possible.
Absolutely. The Nazis did the exact same thing, you know, challenge that belief, and, you know, you're going to the gas chamber. Like, this is an unhealthy, dangerous place we're at. Now, we may be to the far left on this type of thing, but it's the exact same sickness. It's the same sickness. You know, it's happening on both sides of the spectrum, the far right and the far left. When the rational majority, the rational 80% of us that are in the middle or kind of right on some issues and left on others, we can agree on most things. You know, we can agree on most things. But the way that things are positioned, and then, you know, the accusatory mob that comes after you, God forbid, if you don't follow the party line, is very scary.
It is. And I want to pivot a little bit to the fact that I believe, feel free to challenge this belief too, by the way, I'm in for it. I believe that businesses are a reflection of their leadership, whether leadership wants to admit it or not. And what I mean by that is, I mean, I think that at the end of the day, your business is going to function in your image. And that means you're going to hire people who you believe fit the vision of where the company is supposed to go. And you're going to create and allow for directives that allow for the way that the company is going to go. And I wonder, because it's clear to me that you guys are both into developing your person and improving who you are and becoming a better version every single day if you can. How does that influence the way that you run LifeAID?
Well, I would challenge you a little bit in that building the business in our image. I would say we build the products in our image, but we hire people that aren't, you know, in the same echo chamber that we live in, that will challenge us, getting back to what he's saying. So I want to dissect two different points there. The people that work in our team and how diverse that team is different than the products that we develop that are, you know, in our image, essentially.
Well, the alignment comes from alignment of character, the type of people, from a core belief system. The diversity happens, and we represent, you know, 8 different countries here. We've got our oldest employees in their 70s, our youngest are in their early 20s, all religions, all races. Like, you know, we have aggressive salespeople. We have very passive, quiet, people in other positions. So there's massive diversity as far as, how people show up in the world. But what aligns us, I believe, and what we really look for is, kind of those core values and that type of thing. And that is reflected in the products, the company, the team. Like, hey, you might get, Lorelei, and we love Lorelei was, a general for us. She's a general, and not everybody's a general. Some people aren't on the battlefield. They're at home and they're, typing out notices for sick leave and stuff like that. Like you need everybody. You need generals and you need the desk jockey. And that's what makes, an organization move forward. But that doesn't mean we're not in alignment.
Well, and that's, I think what I probably could have said better is I believe, Orion, that when you're recruiting staff, you're not looking for people to agree with you. You're not looking for people to live in your echo chamber. And that to me will create a company that allows for diversification of viewpoints to get to the end best result. And that's,
we want the best ideas to percolate to, the surface. And so if we're only listening to our voices in our debate and only giving instruction, I mean, that's we're going to make mistakes. Whereas, we listen to our people, we hire the best people. They disagree with us. They have different worldviews, different outlooks, different belief in the direction of the company. Then in that, marketplace of ideas, the best ones will percolate and provide, the best course for us to take as a company. I would say that it's the same thing for our country,
I think Ray Dalio calls it like an idea meritocracy or something along those lines. Like basically creating an environment where people feel empowered to speak up, right? And say what's on their mind. And look, we may not always agree with it. Quite frequently, quite often we don't. Like, it's like, okay, good, that's great. Taking all the inputs, the buck stops here as far as, hey, we got to make the decision to move forward, right or wrong. And that's the key, I think, with leadership is, you got to make a decision. You got to move, even if it's the wrong move, you just don't let the wrong move sink the ship. You're always going to make wrong moves. I always love, when we're looking at, business plans or somebody and they have like, okay, here's what's going to happen. We're going to start here and we're going to come up here in sales or whatever. It's like, no. We all know that you might go up and then you go way down, then you come back up again. And it's like a zigzag. Eventually you average it over time. It's up and to the right, hopefully, but it's not a clean straight line by any stretch of the imagination.
So how do you, as the leaders of your team, create an environment of resiliency amongst your staff? I mean, I imagine that for your staff to be able to look at the way that you guys have pulled through all the things that we've been pulling through lately as a country and for you as a company and for you personally, they have to look at that and say, I don't know if I want to complain about this little thing that's bothering me today, but I imagine that you guys would welcome that complaint. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say core value number 7, which is written in all of our notebooks. I don't know if they can see it there. Yeah, 7. Be solutions oriented, not problem focused. So we don't want anyone coming to us with a problem ever. We don't have problems. First of all, we have challenges, and whatever challenge they come with, think through the solution. We're not the oracles here having solutions for everything. Think through the solution and come with a suggestion. It's like, okay, that's great, or yeah, that's great, but let's tweak it a little bit and make it even better. So, empowering the people to have the diversity of opinion, empowering them to come forward and having the expectation that, look, we're not just an echo chamber for complaints, but, if there's a challenge that you're having, think through the solution. Let's think through the best way forward. And often people solve their own issues and their own challenges when they're given that type of autonomy to do so.
Is that something that you guys find you have to consistently reinforce? Or is that something that once somebody's on the team at LifeAID, they're adopting it?
Once they're around long enough, it takes a while. It takes a while.
It's an ongoing ideal that we have as a company. Does it always happen? No. And with remote learning and not being in a collaborative office environment, which is another, a casualty of COVID, it's harder.
There's certain things, if you drill long enough, they always stick. A lot of us, at least half the company, if not more, and if you haven't taken it, we've taken this course called Vocabulary, and it's all about our communication style and basically eliminating soft talk and negations, right? So anytime people are using soft talk in a meeting, they get called out by me or M or somebody else, like soft talk, that's all you got to say. And then they rephrase what they're saying. Like, we might be able to, could sort of maybe make it to the blah, blah, blah. Soft talk, please. What are we going to do? When are we going to do it by? So just solidifying the communication style is big. It's a slow indoctrination process.
The only reason that I don't do soft talk is I hate the word soft talk. So I hear it all the goddamn time.
That's perfect. You don't want to be scolded for it. I like it.
No, I know. And he likes to scold me the most.
I believe it. We had at one point, our entire staff went through Vocabulary as well. And I've had Mark England on the podcast twice. I think it's a great course. I think it's a great way to develop communication strategies amongst your staff. So what would you say now is the purpose for your business? What is the purpose for LifeAID? What does it exist to do?
Well, look, the big beverage companies in this country had gotten a free pass for over 100 years, literally poisoning our kids with sugar water, artificial ingredients, food coloring, all the stuff that we know causes chronic inflammation, which is basically leading to every disease that we're suffering from today, stems from chronic inflammation. That's no secret. Reverse engineer what people are dealing with. Chronic inflammation and liquid sugar and liquid garbage has been a big contributor to that. So every person that we get to put down an energy drink or down a soda or down a quote unquote sports drink and pick up one of our products, we're forever changing their health trajectory, And so we're very motivated by that. We're motivated by that because we know we're making an impact on the world. I was a chiropractor for 10 years. I was really damn good at what I did. I'd say I was one of the best chiropractors, if not the best, in definitely the county and probably the state. I could only work on so many people in a day. You work on 40 people, I'm exhausted, put in a 10-hour day, and I've just had a major impact on 40 people's lives. But now we're having an impact on millions of people's lives. Millions upon millions every day. We're literally, what we're doing is creating a change in the marketplace. So now more and more companies are getting rid of sucralose and aspartame out of their products. They're getting rid of all these sodium hits. They're getting rid of the 2 servings per container bullshit, lack of transparency that they've gotten away with when you drink the whole thing in one sitting, right? They're getting rid of gratuitous amounts of sugar. Things are changing. It's slow, but we are a catalyst for that change. We were around for 10 years. We were one of the very first to market in, low sugar beverages that actually taste good. We were first to market and function forward, and not just putting pixie dust, but actually putting efficacious doses of nutrients and vitamins in our products. So I think we've changed the landscape. We continue to change the landscape. We'll continue to push that forward and hold more and more companies accountable as we continue to mold the criteria of purchase when you're putting something in your body.
That's the external purpose of the company. And then, of course, internally, we want to help change the lives of all of our stakeholders. And our stakeholders aren't just our shareholders. They're our team, they're our suppliers, they're our customers. We do a tremendous amount of work cultivating those relationships, and independent of what our team look like, it amazes me thinking about how many hundreds of people that are directly or indirectly employed because of what we're doing. It's quite a neat accomplishment, and always puts a smile on my face.
Did you see it going this way when you guys first got started? Were you like, you know what, we're going to start a beverage company that changes millions of people's lives. Was that the jump?
Yes, and it was the perfect cocktail of ignorance and ambition, I would say.
What does that mean?
Well, I'd say we are industry outsiders, so we really didn't understand the tremendous amount of marketing and what exactly the economics would look like and how much we would have to push in terms of spend into the market. And then, I'd say, we both were highly ambitious individuals. That's where we developed our friendship. Actually, we met in a CrossFit gym. And I think anyone that's going through CrossFit an hour every day is, ambitious. That's a small micro ambitious undertaking, but yeah, if we, that's a pretty powerful combination. I mean, if you don't know what you don't know, you can run into something with eyes wide shut and actually come out successful on the other side.
I like that.
So they're more than ambitious. CrossFitters are addicts. I'll bet I have this theory that if you went through the familial bloodline of all CrossFitters, you're going to find a higher proportion of addicts than anything else. I know I have addicts, a lot of addiction in my family. You got to be an addict to put your body through that kind of pain and short-term suffering, knowing that it's going to come out the other side. And it's like, that makes great business people and entrepreneurs because it's that relentless pursuit. I mean, it's the stick to it. The thickness of skin, the willingness, the resilience, the willingness to burn the ships at the shore. I mean, most people just don't have the balls to do it. I mean, it's really not that smart. If you're just looking at it from kind of an accounting or legal perspective, like, what are you going to do? You're going to leave what and do what? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of,
Mm-hmm.
But that ability to take that risk, whether that's, putting your name on the whiteboard and going out there and busting your ass and publicly displaying how fit you are in front of an audience, or that's, starting a business and putting your whole life savings into it and making a go at it. Like, they both take a certain amount of a crazy addicted personality to make that work.
From the moment, the vision of, we were gifted with the vision of LifeAID, it felt like we just pulled it out of the collective consciousness of what people were doing, and the whole movement towards better for you products was at the very beginning of that. And that whole AID versus, aiding your health versus ADE, quenching your thirst, like everything made perfect sense to us. And 90% of people thought we were absolutely crazy. But once we kind of had the plan for the product and the name and the logo, it was very easy to kind of put things into motion by making a declaration to your friends and your family saying, I'm going to do this. You know why? Because in the back of your mind, you're chicken shit and saying, I don't know that I'm going to do this, but I'm going to walk off this ledge. And quite frankly, I couldn't have walked off that ledge if it wasn't for my wife and if it wasn't for my business wife, Erin.
Mm.
Did you call me your business bitch? I think he called me his business.
He calls his business wife. I don't know if that's the same, but he definitely.
I interpreted it.
I wasn't going to say business husband. I promise you that.
So I have two more questions for you guys, and then I want to. I know we started a little bit late, and I want to let you go because I want to get you to your next meetings. The first question is: you mentioned that you've taken private equity to help you build LifeAID, and one of the things that stands out to me about both of you is that you're clearly running a purpose-driven business. I would never think that the goal is X amount of dollars at whatever stake necessary to earn the cash back for investors if it was out of alignment with the purpose of the company. Does that add an extra layer of complexity when you're deciding who you're willing to bring on for funding? Or is that something that, I've never brought funding in. I'm curious about it.
Well, our primary investor, the fund is exclusively his own money, and he only invests companies that he thinks are going to make a difference in the world. And so it's absolutely crucial that whoever you bring on to the cap table is in alignment with your vision. I'd also like to say that, Aaron, myself, and our friends and family who came into the company, we own a super majority of the company. And so, we made sure to always be in control of the ship for the very, control and decision issues that you're kind of outlining there. But our investors are very much in alignment with what we're doing. And, as far as the quickest path to X amount of revenue, we could have created, a pre-workout and filled it with tons of caffeine and made it sweet and maybe more appealing to the younger generation with sucralose. And, there's certain products out there that we could have designed and put into the market, and it could have been an additional injection of revenue. And we purposefully decided to stay within our guardrails and our core values.
That we were begged to design.
Mostly because our sales, because they're just a bunch of whores.
Well, I have a lot of respect and admiration for your steadfastness in the direction of your purpose. And just a quick question for you, because I'm not informed, and I imagine that means some of the people listening aren't. What's the difference between a majority and a supermajority?
Well, percentage. I mean, if you look in terms of Congress, a supermajority is 66% or higher. So, 2/3. Yeah, 66%. Yeah. My math is a little slow today.
Perfect.
And look, it's not just the private equity you need to be in alignment with. You need to be in alignment with even the investor that gives you $1, because minority investors can be a complete pain in the ass and cause a lot of issues if you're not in alignment. So if you're taking outside capital, you need to be very clear and very much in alignment around the vision and expectations and just everything that comes with that. And it's a big responsibility, because now it's like, at first we were just playing with our chips, and we were playing with our chips and our family's chips, and it was our chips, our family's chips, and our friends' chips. And as we play with more and more people's chips, it's like, okay, we need to be very thoughtful about who these people are, what their expectations are, and make sure that alignment stays throughout, because like you said, if you had a private equity on that's just all about a quick flip, and it's like, push top line revenue and we need to flip this thing in 3 years, that's a very different approach than, hey, we want to change the landscape of the beverage company and be here for the next 100 years and and elevate the whole game. Like, those are totally different playbooks.
Mm-hmm. We've always built a durable business and figured out the financing would come when it needed to come. We were confident of that after, I think, the 11th or 12th time of almost going bankrupt.
Yeah, really.
That's a story for another day. The last question I wanted to ask you is, you talked about, Ryan, in a video that I saw, the idea that really LifeAID is about taking big chances on yourself and having the faith that they're going to work out. And I'm paraphrasing, and I hope that I'm not bastardizing too much. But what does that mean to you?
I mean, look, we live in a country, we're blessed to live in a country that isn't going to kick you out and onto the street or have you as an indentured servant because you take on debt that you can't repay and be essentially enslaved. We have rules and laws that benefit the entrepreneur and individualism. And, I'm a big believer in like taking a shot at yourself. We have the safety nets in place for you to be able to do that. So you definitely should do that if you feel so compelled.
People are betting all the time on, whether it's through their 401k or their own Robinhood account, on other companies and other teams and other products that they may or may not have experience with, people they've never met before. They have no idea what the culture is, what the trajectory is, any of that kind of stuff. But yet we're handing over our money to them. Wouldn't you much rather invest in yourself and your own ideas and your own, that way there's no one to blame. Like, that stock goes down, oh man, they missed their numbers, the management team screwed up. Not my fault, but I lost money. You lose money when it's on you. There's only one place to look, in the fucking mirror, So
a lot of people don't want to take that accountability on. They're afraid of it.
Well,
but one thing I say is by far and I used to be a stockbroker, and I'm definitely a hell of a lot better stock picker than Aaron. But the highest,
I will agree with him on that. I sold Peloton at $17 a share. I was like, damn, I'm the only one that in the whole world that's lost
transformational
sort of
fitness movement. And I do talk quite often about Peloton and the boatloads of money I've made in that stock. But even way better than Peloton is the return on investment that, I've had in any of my own businesses by far, LifeAID.
Oh, I thought you were about to give a stock tip, but we're not publicly traded, so.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not
yet. No, I think
I was thinking about what would our ticker be. I'm thinking for Party Aid and then the AID paid. Do you think that would be a good stock ticker?
I mean, yeah, I like that as a stock ticker. Yeah, that's really good. I want to make sure that I say this before you guys are done. For me,
what about LifeAID in the AID and it would be laid?
I was, yes.
Okay, this is a PG show.
That could work too.
Yeah, that could work. Sorry, go ahead, Sean.
They're both going to be good Google searches. So I have 3 kids at home, and for me, one of the biggest concerns that I have for my kids is when they go to school and other kids have food. Let me rephrase. Other kids have stuff that is supposed to be food that my kids then come home wanting and, asking for. And when they have the money themselves or the autonomy themselves, not even the money, because my 5-year-old's not going to have money for a while, right? But she's going to want things in school. One of my biggest concerns is them coming home with the kinds of products that you guys should replace. And knowing you and knowing the kind of people that you guys are, for me, is refreshing because it's the kind of thing that we can confidently say, look, yeah, I can do my research into what they're doing in LifeAID, but at the end of the day, I look at the guys running the company and I'm confident that I can give this to my kid. And for me, that's a big deal. And I want to thank you guys for that.
That means a lot. We appreciate it. And that's what we're here for. That's what it's all about.
And we have each 2 kids of our own. So we're very cognizant of that.
The pendulum is swinging. There's a lot of crap out there. I predict, 50 years from now, we're going to realize that what we put in our bodies is a direct reflection in how we show up in the world, how we perform. And, we're going to start treating our bodies like the temples that they are and, really being conscious of what we consume, both in food and beverage, supplements, et cetera. And we're already seeing changes. We're seeing the natural product movement, which was just a niche hippie movement that started in Santa Cruz back in the 1960s, is now becoming mainstream. All the category growth is around better for you natural products. I mean, I just think of all the products that I use, from, native deodorant to Dr. Brahmer's toothpaste and soap to, the drinks and food products and like everything. There's this movement that is not a little blimp on the radar. It's here to stay. And so I think, with the kids, the more we can educate them and just say, look, I've got a sweet tooth. I love ice cream and, I love pie and that kind of thing. And I know, and my wife reminds me, if I have too much of it, I feel like shit. It literally wipes my body out. Like it's worse than drinking too much for me personally. And, those little reminders, like I'm making a conscious decision. So arming people with the information, and look, it's okay to, have a scoop of ice cream once in a while. It's just don't eat it 3 times a day. Let's elevate ourselves. Let's increase the accountability and vote with our wallet. At the end of the day, it's all economics. We're voting with our wallets every single day.
Consumers are demanding it, and they're demanding it with their money. And I'll just give you, for instance, while we wrap up here, is, last year, Aaron and I were invited to speak at a conference at Nestle USA headquarters. And the title of the conference is Food as Medicine. And you have the largest CPG company on the globe focusing on that sort of initiative be rapidly changing, because it's not just the upstarts that are really pushing. It's the laggard, like big, gigantic companies that are catching up here, which is a great thing, that we've helped change that conversation in our small way. you're going to see a lot of changes in the next 10 years.
I'd love to hear that. Thank you guys. I appreciate the time you gave me today.
Thanks, Sean. Nice meeting you.
Thanks, bud.
Nice to meet you too, Orion. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Active Life Podcast. If you did, please be sure to head to wherever you listened to it and give us a quality review, as well as 5 stars if you can spare them. If you want more from us, feel free to follow all of our social media accounts at Active Life Professional, Active Life RX, and Dr. Sean Pastuch on Instagram. Remember, at Active Life, we believe that the healthcare clinic of the future is the gym, and the healthcare provider of the future is the coach. We also believe that future is now.